Hi, I would like to show you how to set up an FTP server on AWS. Now, FTP stands for File Transfer Protocol. It's a protocol that is used to transfer files to and from the remote server. Now, we need to run an FTP server on a remote Ubuntu server or Linux server that will enable us to use a remote an FTP client on our local machine to transfer files from our local machine to the remote server, or from the remote server to our local machine. Now, to set up FTP on AWS, as usual, we need to have access to AWS console. Or you do that by logging in. So I'll log in. If you don't have an account with AWS, you can create one for free. You must have an email address, a phone number, basically a working phone number, not any phone number, but a working phone number, and also the credit card information. But for me, I already have an account with AWS, so I won't need to create a new one. Now, I've also written an article about FTP installation process. It's a detailed article. I'll leave the link in the description below, so that you can read this article to learn the steps that are involved in installing FTP on Linux server. You can learn about what is an FTP server, an FTP client, how to connect to an FTP server, the login information, and the firewall rules, and the installation process that you need to follow to achieve installing the FTP server script on the Ubuntu remote server. Now, when we access our AWS console, we need to create an EC2 instance. So this basically means creating a virtual machine that will be assigned with an IP address, and then we're gonna use that IP address to log into, or to remotely log into, the EC2 instance that is running on AWS platform, and then we will install an FTP server on that instance using SSH. Now let's get started. To create an instance, we just have to click EC2 instance. In most cases, if your account is new and you're just starting, you won't find EC2 instance in a recently visited services. All you have to do is to come here at the search bar or the search form, and then search for EC2 service. So this, you search for this one, and then click. By the way, if you already have a running instance, you don't need to create a new one. You just have to wait and wait for the time when we will start installing FTP on the server. Right now, what we need to first do, for me, because I don't have a running instance at the moment, I'll have to first create an EC2 instance with Ubuntu Linux, and then we will have to configure some firewall rules, and then we will access SSH. Now, to create an EC2 instance, we can proceed with launch. We can click launch. You can click launch. Okay, you'll be redirected to a page where you're supposed to fill in certain information, or to select the operating system that you want to install on the instance. For our case, we have a couple of operating systems that we can select, but in this example, we're gonna select Ubuntu, and make sure you select the stable version of Ubuntu, not the latest one. Because there is already a newer version of Ubuntu, so we're gonna select Ubuntu. I'm gonna select T2 Micro because this is free. It's a free tier instance, and I would like to select Linux. I will select Linux, and then you can as well compare instances. So you can compare instances here. If you wanted to get a more powerful machine, you can select from any of these ones, but remember you're gonna be charged when you select a powerful server from AWS. So maybe if you have a newer account, you better stick to the free tier plan. For my case, I'm gonna stick to the free tier plan because they won't charge me using it. So I'll just go with this one. And there is something that I wanted to emphasize on. When you select Ubuntu, there are a couple of versions of Ubuntu. The latest version is 22.04. This is the latest Ubuntu version. However, I don't think it would be wise to use it right now since it's the newest, and maybe it's likely that some scripts have not yet been updated to be compatible with this version. So I would just suggest that maybe for your own stability and convenience, you can select the earlier version, which is 20.04. So we won't select 22, we will select 20.04. Okay, the architecture is 64-bit. That is okay. The instance type is T2 Micro free tier eligible. That's what I'm selecting. If you wanted a bigger machine, then you can compare and select a bigger machine than the free version. And now this is very important because in this section, this is when you create a key pair. A key pair means that a public key is gonna be created, and that public key will be tied to your AWS account, and then a private key will be downloaded. When the private key is downloaded on your local computer, is what you're gonna use to log into your instance using SSH. Now, to create a key pair, you basically have to click create and name your key pair anything you want. There is no standard procedure of naming a key pair. You can name it boy, you can name it server, you can name it computer, you can name it Zuckerberg, you can name it anything you want. So make sure you name it anything you want, and then make sure you select RSA and also select PEM. You select the version PEM, the extension PEM. Okay, select PEM and make sure let me say you must leave all these, the key pair type to be as it is by default. Don't change anything here, right? You'll be prompted once you finish this filling in or naming your key pair. You'll be prompted to create, and then you'll download the private key on your computer. Make sure when you download the private key on your computer, you remember the directory where it is stored, because to connect it to your SSH, you will have to go there, to browse there using your terminal, your terminal, and then execute the unSSH command while binding your key to that SSH command to log in. Let me hope you've understood here. Alright, now the next step, for my case, I'm not gonna create a new key pair because I already have a key pair. I have two key pairs, but I'm gonna select my first key pair here. For your case, you can create the key pair, and then here we can create a security group. If you have an existing security group, you can select one, or if you want to create a new security group, you can select create a security group. Now, a security group will allow us to configure some certain firewalls that are critical to our server. The firewalls are those rules that define how traffic is managed by your server. If you want to allow HTTP or HTTP traffic to and from your server, then you can create the rules, HTTPS rules, that enables that. Now, one of the first priority we need to consider is that we have to allow SSH on our server. When you don't allow that port, it means that you won't be able to access the server. So we have to make sure the allow SSH traffic is enabled as an inbound rule. The other important rules we have to enable on this server the FTP TCP ports, the port 20 and port 21. But for now, we will enable those ports later when you have already installed the server. Let's first go with allow SSH, and then we will come back to configure the TCP ports later when the server is already installed. For now, we can go with this. So you can select create a security group, allow SSH, and then make sure anywhere. Anywhere means you can access the instance, or you can log into your server from any computer, from any computing device, from wherever you are, from any part of the world. You are not restricted. That's what it means. Now, when we proceed down here, under the free tier plan, we are allowed to assign storage to our free tier machines, up to 40 GB of SSD storage. So I can extend my storage up to maybe 20 GB or 30 GB. Let's go with 30, since it is. Let me just go with 20. If you go beyond 20, or if you go beyond 30, then you will be charged money. So you have to be very cautious when you are configuring the storage of your instance. And the next thing, when you've configured everything here, let me repeat the process. The first thing that you need to do is to select the Amazon machine image, the MUIs. They are called Amazon machine image. So these ones, the machine image, define the operating system which you want to install on your EC2 instance. So for our case, we're gonna select Ubuntu. We also make sure we are selecting the right version of Ubuntu. For this case, we are not selecting the newest version of Ubuntu. We are selecting a bit older version of Ubuntu, which is 20.04. Okay. So we also making sure we are using the free tier plan to run the server. We don't want to be charged any money. And also we are making sure we have a key pair that is created. For your case, you can create your own key pair from here and download the private key on your local machine. The other thing is to make sure you've selected the right security rules under your security group attached to your instance. If you have an existing security group, you can select it, or you can create your own security, the new security group with SSH allowed by default. And now make sure it is anywhere, meaning that you can access the SSH terminal to your server from any computing device from any part of the world without any restriction. Now the next thing that we need to do is to make sure the storage is set to the right amount that is appropriate for our server. After that, the next step that we have to do is to launch an instance. So we're gonna launch an instance. Okay, so our machine is actually running. So our machine is running, and when we click there, we have to see the status of the machine. I believe it is provisioning, so you have to be patient for the machine to complete the provisioning process. And then as you can see, the instance state is running right now. So this means that we can connect to our machine by selecting it. We select the machine. When we select the machine, you can see that our machine is assigned a public IPv4 DNS. You can use this one to connect to your SSH, to connect using SSH. Alternatively, you can use a public IP address for SSH. You can either use public IP address or you can use public IPv4 DNS. For my instance, the good thing about AWS is that they're gonna give you the SSH command that you can use to connect to your machine. You don't have to copy IP address. You just copy one command and that is all. So to do that, you select the machine and then click on connect, and then when you go down here, you'll see that connect to your instance using its public DNS. So all you have to do is maybe to copy this, or alternatively, the best way is to copy this one, because this one will automatically bind. This command will automatically have your SSH key that you download in your local machine automatically configured, and all you have to do is to just copy it and then go to your SSH terminal. Now on your SSH terminal, you have to make sure you look for your private key that you created in the dashboard, in the AWS console dashboard. Now for my case, my SSH key is actually located in the download folder. So to go there, I'm just gonna let me first see where the download folder is. So the download folder is here. So this is the download folder. What I'm gonna do is to select CD downloads, CD downloads, and then I'll have to clear and then try to see whether my key is there. So I'll have to look for the key, which is called Yuga Comp. I'll find the key. The key is called Yuga Comp. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is my key. This is the key I'm interested in. This one is the key. So I'm gonna use this key to connect to the instance that I've already created on AWS. So to do that, I'll have to first clear my terminal, and as I said, this is the command that AWS has given us to connect SSH and then the key, and then the username. The default username of the instance is Ubuntu. So by default, the system assigned the server a default username, which is Ubuntu, and then the public IPv or the public DNS address, which is this one, automatically created for us by AWS. So all we have to do is to copy the command, and then we just go to make sure the directory where your SSH is located is where you make sure you're in the same directory where your SSH is located. So now we have to just paste and then hit enter. Okay, let's do one more time. Okay, I want to make sure whether I'm connected to the internet. Maybe the network could be off. Okay, my network is a little bit slow, so it is actually disturbing me. I don't know why my network keeps on jamming. I will have to call these the internet providers to explain why my network keeps on slowing down or so please excuse me for the network. Let me try to investigate where the problem is. I'm trying to find the issue. You can as well be patient with me a little bit. Okay guys, let me pause this video, then I'm gonna return and then proceed with this video after fixing the network issue. Okay, so I fixed the network error. Actually my router had powered off, and that's why I lost connection to my network, and I've been able to fix the router issues. Sorry about that. That was I was talking about using SSH. So you have to just copy the SSH command that is provided by AWS. That command will automatically have the name of your key pair, the username that is automatically generated, and then the public DNS that is assigned to your server and is created by AWS automatically. Now we can just copy the SSH command and then go back to our terminal. Make sure you are in the same directory where you stored your SSH or your private key. Now all you have to do is to paste the command and then hit enter. Okay, so you have to type yes. Okay, so we are now connected to our server. This is our server. Now the first thing we need to do is to update our server. So we say sudo apt update. Okay, everything is updated. So now to install VS FTP, we're gonna use VS FTP, FTPD script. There are several FTP server scripts out there, but the most commonly used FTP server script is vSFTPD. So we're gonna install this one as our FTP server on AWS. Now in the link in the description below, you're gonna find a link to this article that has all these commands. So all you have to do is to read the article and understand step by step, and then you can just copy the command and paste on our terminal, hit enter, and then Y, which means yes, you are allowing the installation. So as the server is installing, let's go back to our article. When the server is finished installing, you may have to check if the vSFTPD service is running. So you're gonna use this command to verify when the server is finished. So let's first wait for the server to finish the installation. It may take some time depending. Okay, so the vSFTPD server has completed. We have to use this command to know if the service is running. So systemctl status vSFTPD, and then hit enter. As you can see, the service is running. So there's the vSFTPD FTP server. This service is already running, which is good. Now in some instances, if the service is not running, all you have to do is, if you find out that the service is not running, let me first confirm. If the service is not running, all you have to do is to use this command and copy it, or system vSFTPD start. This will start the vSFTPD service. All you have to do is to paste that command and then hit enter, and the service will run. But because the service is already running, or you don't need to actually you need sudo, maybe, I don't know. You need to use, okay, do you need to use sudo? Yeah, you need to use sudo. So I did some mistake here. We need to use sudo. I need to edit this so that you don't have to be confused. I'll fix this. So basically, if you wanted to start the service, you need to use sudo. If the vSTPD service is not running, you will have to use sudo here to start it. Okay, now for our case, since we are running FTP server on AWS, we don't have to create an FTP account. But in case you're running an FTP server on any other platform like Contabo, you may have to forego your root account and create a different FTP account, assign it with the necessary privileges, and then follow all these other explanations. But since we are using AWS, we will just end here on this article. But if you are using Contabo and maybe other cloud computing platform, or maybe other VPS platforms, you have to proceed with these other instructions down here. You have to create a user, an FTP user, and a directory, FTP directory, and assign it to that user, and things like that. All these things you can read through and understand what I was meaning here. But for our case, we will just use the login, the SSH login for AWS, and access our FTP account. Now, before we fire up the FTP client on our machine, we have to first go back and allow the FTP traffic, inbound traffic on AWS. To do that, we have to go back to the security groups. We have to find the security group assigned to the instance. So security groups. Okay, so I'm most likely this is my security group. For your case, your security group could be different. Make sure you know how your security group is named. So this is my security group for my case, and the inbound rules, there is only HTTPS. There is only let's try to edit the inbound rules. As you can see, there is HTTP, there is SSH and HTTP. In most cases, we don't need this, but we just have to leave it there because it is created by default. The system has created it by default for us, so we will leave the HTTP port there. It's not important. The most important port is SSH. It has to be enabled anywhere, and then we also have to enable the FTP ports, the port 21 and port 20. So we will create custom TCP ports, and then port 20, and then here we put this, which means anywhere. We also have to add another rule, another port, which is port 21, which is for SFTP, secure FTP, because we're gonna use a private key to access our FTP server on the client. Okay, so after adding the rule, remember these are inbound rules, they're not outbound rules, so don't get confused. We are adding inbound rules. So under the inbound rules, you add SSH, you add port 20 and 21. So you save these rules. After saving these rules on your computer, you have to find an FTP client. There are various FTP clients out there. In this article, I've talked about some of those clients. I've talked about WinSCP and FileZilla. So you can either download WinSCP and FileZilla. But I highly recommend FileZilla if you are creating FTP for AWS, because FileZilla is likely to work out very smoothly without some disturbances. I've noticed that WinSCP sometimes if you are connecting to AWS FTP server, it keeps disturbing. I haven't found out why, but FileZilla works very well. So you can use FileZilla. If you are in this example, we're gonna use FileZilla. Now I can open FileZilla. In this example, I can open FileZilla. Okay, as the client, the FTP client, if you don't have FileZilla on your computer, you just have to search for it in Google search. And then download is free to use. You can download it, it's free to use. You can use, I have FileZilla Pro, this one, but you can download the free one, which is this one. Download FileZilla client. This is a free version of FileZilla. Okay, so now since my FileZilla is actually open, now what we need is to go to File and then Site Manager and then click. Now we can add a new site, which is, we can, maybe let's name it FTP AWS. You can name it anything you want, and then under the protocol we're gonna use SFTP, which is, because we're gonna use a private key we downloaded from AWS. Okay, now the next thing, we're gonna make sure the host is either the public IP address of the machine, our EC2 instance, or the public DNS, the public AWS DNS that is generated for us and attached to the server. What I mean is this one. When you go back to the instance and then click this to get the details about the instance, you notice that on our machine we have a public DNS IPv4 or IP version 4 DNS. So when you copy this one, or alternatively you can use the public IP address, which is this one. You can use either the public IP address or the DNS. So maybe we can use the public IP address and make sure we paste it there as host. Make sure the port is 22, because SFTP uses we are using a private key. Now the logon type is a key file. So the user is the default user that is created by AWS. You notice that our machine, when you create an EC2 instance, by default the system will assign the server a user, which is Ubuntu by default. So when you try to connect here, you'll go down here and notice that our server is assigned by default a user, which is Ubuntu. So you can see that the user on our server is called Ubuntu. Okay, now you can copy the user and then go back to the client and paste, and then when you paste the key file, you have to find the key file where to look for the private key where it is located. So mine is yuga-comp. I'm gonna go with yuga-comp.pem and then select. Okay, now the next thing is to click or to connect. You can click to save and then maybe go back to the server and then select this to connect. Alternatively, you can click to save, or you can just click right away to connect. And when you click connect, you can select always trust this host, and wait for the server to connect. Okay, as you can see, our server is we have successfully connected to our remote server using FTP. So as you can see, we are in the directory to Ubuntu. This is the directory. For example, let me try to create a directory on let me try to create because when you go cd, let's go back here, and then so this is when you can select cd Ubuntu, and you notice that this is the directory where we are located inside here. For example, let me try to transfer a small file from desktop. Let me try to find a file. Okay, let me try to put this file to my Ubuntu directory on my remote server. Okay, the file is finished to transfer. When you go back to your terminal, since we are in Ubuntu directory, if you want to confirm, you just say pwd print the working directory. As you can see, we are in Ubuntu directory, and then we can try to see what is inside there now. Yeah, so this is the file we just transferred from the local computer to our remote server. That is it. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. If you liked this video, you can subscribe, you can like the video, you can hit the notification button, you can share the video with other people. Please come back again and watch more videos like this. I really appreciate your help. When you like this video, when you subscribe to my channel, you are really supporting me in one way or the other. Thank you so much. Please read the article that I've written about installing FTP Server on Linux. The link is down in the description. If you have any question, you can find me on Fiverr. I'll leave another link for my Fiverr profile in the link in the description below. Thank you so much, and see you another time.